All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks again for watching our videos on our alumni and our current students. Today, I'm very lucky to be interviewing Daniel. Daniel, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hey everyone, Daniel Marashlian here. Really, a longtime entrepreneur in almost my whole career. Former CS grad at U of A in 2004, and just always been into not only STEM, but as I decided, when I went to school and went deeper and deeper into computer science and fell in love with it, that I always knew this is what I wanted to do. And as I, kind of graduated out and went into the work field and realize, get some experience in the work field, but then always loved doing what I do now, which is entrepreneurship and engineering leadership. So
Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. So, where are you originally from?
I actually grew up in Sedona, Arizona, so not too far, a little bit north of the campus, but yeah, unique place to be from.
That's cool. So, what made you decide to go from Sedona and attend the University of Arizona?
For sure. I was always, in high school, straight A's, kind of smart kid, and sometimes sure you hear in your head like Stanford and Harvard and all these kind of programs and I just whatever, myself or my family didn't have enough to send me to those kind of private institutions. And so I was looking at public programs. And even though there was some amazing public computer science programs out there from Berkeley to whatnot, that still would have been out of state and still a little too much for me at the time and my family. And so looking within state at the three major universities, and back then at least, University of Arizona, compared to ASU, had a pure computer science degree, where I think ASU just had a computer science and engineering degree. I think they've changed since over the couple decades, and now I'm aging myself. But no, I really fell in love with the software side of life versus the hardware. And I mean, nothing's wrong with the hardware side, but for me, I was all about the software side.
So, is that love of the software side, is that what got you interested in selecting computer science as your major?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, growing up, like playing video games, and then it's always like, oh, I'd love to make one of these, and then you start doing a little bit more research at how to do that, and you start realizing, oh, it's this thing called programming, and you're telling the computer what to do, and oh, that sounds kind of interesting. And when I started college in 2000. And the reason why I bring that up is, maybe for some of you newcomers out there, do your history of the internet. But right, that was the height of the dot-com boom, right before the dot-com crash. So when I went into university, it was also funny. A little story was back in the, I don't know if they do this anymore, but like on the USA Today or whatever Times paper, like in the top right, it was like top paid, college degrees. And so in 2000, in the dot-com boom, it was computer science number one, computer engineering number two. I was like, well, computers are cool, and software sounds kind of fun. And you would dab around in DOS or back then whatever it was, like maybe little Visual Basic stuff. And so it was super interesting. And it was like, well, that's cool. You make a lot of money and something fun in computers and math, and let's go do it. And obviously I fell in love with it, but yeah, it's kind of how I really came to be in this world, was that one day reading that paper, I guess.
That's great. And it's funny because there was a recent article that said the same thing about, software development being one of the best positions to start off in. So it's in having a computer science background was highlighted as a key thing. So that's really
Yeah,
great.
definitely. What's interesting is in not to, dissuade anyone from going to a computer science degree, but like I've also seen in web development more than like hardcore software engineering. Like I've actually worked with a lot of people out of like cognitive science and political science, and people get and studied, right, the ins and outs of how humans work and think together, and it starts leaning itself more towards like product development. And it's a very interesting, field of study, but working with people that study those fields, and then yeah, also build the skills to develop, maybe call it web software as well. Those individuals are also super interesting to work with. Yeah.
Awesome. So Sedona, you had video game experience, you saw that article, and so you came here. So tell us a little bit about your experience here. What did you enjoy most about being at the U of A?
For sure. It was, while it's obviously a big university compared to your 5,000, small private school or something like that. I had tons of friends that went to ASU, and like even though that's a, maybe call it double the size, I forget nowadays, but like it just felt like nothing wrong with it. They do amazing stuff, and especially in different verticals there, but like just kind of felt like I was a number, and I was part of it, but it wasn't a community. And down at U of A, it was like again, it's a bigger school, but it was just like it just something about it felt more community driven, and that you're part of this whatever community. And it also helped me where I actually lived weirdly enough, like on campus, but off campus. It was like literally across the street. I think nowadays I've visited since those houses that I lived in have been torn down for some giant complex, but it was fun. I like literally lived across street, and so it's easy to pick my skateboard up and go to class or whatever it was. But it was just like I wasn't driving. At in Phoenix, we were driving maybe 10 miles away or whatever it is. It's a that like tight-knit community where you can think of and you see, I never attended or visited like some of those smaller schools back on the East Coast, but you see from watching movies to friend interactions, it's just like those are much smaller type communities, and even for a larger university, it kind of had that essence, which I loved.
That's great. What about a favorite memory while you were here?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was academic would be my favorite memory, but on the academic side, I think the care of the professors, I think for your academic university, the work and the what do you call it? I don't know, the purpose of more of these tenured professors, sadly sometimes with the way universities work, isn't the students. Like maybe that's 10, 20, 30% of their job, right? And a lot of the other stuff is research and publications and whatnot. But holy cow, the at least when I was there, right, a couple decades ago, the care of the professors, I'm sure it's the same way now. It was just so there and real, and you can go talk to them, and you can and not that sure, like all of professors around the world have office hours and whatnot, but like you can go those office hours, but they also give you your email. They would help you. They would get you over that hump, right? I mean, I remember sitting in my algorithms class, like I'm sure we use the same book, that like green and white one that's like looks like a dictionary. But it was like, I remember I had to write like 40-page proofs of some algorithm, and it's just like you can just really go in and truly understand the why behind it. And I think those hours that I put in, at least in that passion and care to the why behind everything, that the professors saw that as well and gave their time, specifically one-on-one time, to me, and yeah, that was really unbelievable.
That's great. Was there a specific faculty member that had a really strong positive impact on you?
Yeah, I think he's retired now, but Dr. Patrick Homer was great. I remember he actually, I don't even know how he got this approved from the dean, but he had a class where it was him and me and one other student. And so there was three of us in the class with one professor. It was and it was in nowadays, I mean, in the Mac development world, there's Swift, which didn't exist back then, but learning Objective-C and developing fat client like applications on the Mac is so unique and different from like just learning object oriented programming in Java or whatever it is. And so like learning the ins and outs of the SDK around the Mac OS development and learning Objective-C, and yeah, just that, again, that like one-on-one time we had with them was so cool. Again, I'm probably dating myself, but there were very few Macs on campus, and so I remember in like I forget the lab number, but in some special lab in the CS building, there was like two pristine brand new Macs, which maybe isn't as rare nowadays, but it was always fun to work on those. So
Yeah, that's great. Currently, we do have about 30 Macs on our 930 computer lab, so it has grown since. Yeah,
there you go. There you go.
So tell us about your current position, your role. How did you get there? What is this role and why is it important?
For sure. It's definitely a journey throughout my career, but to not take up the whole hour was, I started, wanted to just, kind of be my own, call it boss, or build something for the community. It really started where I was working for another company. We were doing really big content sites for the NFL. Like we built maybe 6 or 7 of the NFL websites. And then NCAA, we actually hosted the Arizona, I think it's ArizonaWildcats.com, but like, the sports site for Arizona. So that was always fun too. That was working on that, and tons of other collegiate sites. And I remember we launched the big NCAA.com property. And that went out nationally, television, right? NCAA.com, which is owned by CBS, had this big thing during the March Madness tournament. And it was like, holy cow, I built that, right? Like, I mean, not just me, it was with the team, but like, it was like, that was so cool. That I remember that moment, because that was like, this is what I want to do. I want to build stuff that millions of people get impacted by, whether it's a direct consumer thing or it's a B2B kind of thing, help people in whatever way that is. And so from there forward, I was like, I want to go do this myself. And so through a string of maybe B2B companies or maybe direct to consumer companies, going through the motions of those businesses, learning as you go, obviously, learning your mistakes and fixing them faster. And that couple decades now of experience I've had doing that, it really led to really quick, the last business we started, think of like LinkedIn for college students. Even though LinkedIn is a tool for college students, actually less than 20% of college students are on LinkedIn. And it was a tool we built called Portfolium. It was a tool to help students primarily showcase their skills and competencies through a portfolio. And we worked with a lot of universities. Sadly, we never got U of A on the board, but we had about 400 universities nationwide. It was pretty good sized business, and built that up. And every time we sold to a university the software, and we built a lot of back-end software also for the faculty and administration at the universities to manage their assessment process, which, Martin, maybe you've been part of in the CS department, but a lot of that's done by hand. And man, these crazy stories you would hear of like English professors getting around a conference table and regrading a 6-foot tall pile of papers that were over the past 10 years, regrading them against the rubric that the dean or the provost are setting out against their new learning standards for their accreditation process over the next 5 years. It was like, that is insane. Like, let's write software and automate this for you guys. So that's kind of what we did. And through the output of that was this e-portfolio students could use for their own professional or personal gains. So we did that. Every time we sold a university, like the CIO or someone like that would be like, okay, like this looks really great. I've heard great things from the buyer, whether that was a provost or president or whatever. And they'd be like, well, let me see your SOC 2 report. And if, for what you guys might not know what that is, it's a industry report around how do you prove your cloud security. You're like, hey, I'm going to go put all my student data in your platform. How do you make sure that doesn't get lost or leaked? I mean, every single day nowadays, you're hearing about these breaches and data loss, and and it's like, all of us are users of those tools. None of us want our data stolen for, cybercrime or whatever. So it was funny. We were building a tool to have students prove their skills and competencies and showcase and build that trust to their graduate school or job, or future career or whatnot. And we couldn't do that with our own platform and our security posture. We couldn't prove to anyone of how we were doing it. Sure, I was doing everything right, but it's like, that's, my word isn't as good as what a CIO might need at a university. So, I'd go fill out these security questionnaires that are 400 questions long, and I'd be up till 3 a.m., every day. And as the sales team kept selling, it was, getting apparent, whoa, I really need to pay attention to what this SOC 2 thing is. Some privacy laws out of Europe in 2018 came out called GDPR. There's tons of other acronyms around all these other compliances, and it was really impacting our business and our sales cycles and obviously the protection around our student data. So we got into it and we did that, and eventually we actually sold to Canvas, which is Instructure, the makers of Canvas, that big learning management system. So we kind of merged that in and built Portfolio around the Canvas ecosystem. And I worked with their big security team to get a SOC 2 report for Portfolio under Canvas. And it was like, we were a smaller company. We were like 40, 50 people. And okay, startup, founder, 40 people. I'm going to do whatever it takes. Like I said, I'm up till 3 a.m. filling out security questionnaires. I'll figure out the SOC 2 thing, which we did. It's just like spreadsheets and tickets and communication and figuring out this big list of 200 items you have to go prove to an auditor. But now we're at Instructure, and there's 1,500 employees and major systems and billion-dollar infrastructure, right? It's like crazy. guess how they were doing it? It was the same way, right? It's by hand. It's Jira tickets and spreadsheets and meetings, and like I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy cow! I was so excited to work with this team, and obviously they're a great team over there. Don't get me wrong, but just the process in which was so manual. I was like, there has to be a better way. So that classic, like, build a better mousetrap, entrepreneurial wheel started, going again. And as we exited that business, that's a whole nother story. They got bought out by a private equity firm, and maybe that's for the finance guys at U of A, not the CS guys. Yeah. So we ended up leaving, and we loved the founding team of the last company, Portfolio, loved working with each other. And so, hey, what other ideas? Let's get back together. Let's figure out our next business venture. And all roads kept coming back to what we're doing at Drata. And so what we do at Drata is we help businesses automate the security compliance programs. So all that evidence collection, you're eventually going to have to show to an auditor, all those checks and balances. If something gets out of whack, we automate almost the entirety of the process. And for the stuff that we can't automate because humans are involved, like Martin, you need to do your cybersecurity training. I can't automate that. You have to go do that. But at least in that perspective, what we can do is build a beautiful experience and not make it so bad for you, the employee, the marketer, the salesperson. Okay, I got to go do this thing for the company to help our security posture. Cool. And at least it's not this like burdensome kind of gross thing, right? It's a very nice experience and it's easy. And maybe I got to do it once a year if I'm the marketing specialist in the business. So that's kind of what we do. And then the back end software for the whole security and compliance team is, a whole workflow to automate readiness towards that and the automatic evidence collection. So you might ask yourself, well, what is that? So nowadays in moderns, if you were to go build a company tomorrow, you might need to host servers. You might need to have an identity system for your employees. You might need to host your code somewhere. So you have things like GitHub or GitLab or AWS or GCP or Azure. You might have identity tools like Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace or Okta. You have, I don't know, ticketing tools like Jira or Asana. You have, the list goes on, cybersecurity awareness training, HRIS systems, background check tools. The list goes on. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch. But so yeah, so far we built about 100 integrations, and we're like when we did a big analysis of the entire landscape of the industry, we've kind of identified about 500 very popular SaaS tools out there. So we're a fifth of the way there. But if you're a younger company built a company over the past maybe 5-7 years, we've already covered the core major tools you're using to automate all that evidence collection around all those cloud tools, and where your customer and employee data lives. We can automatically gather what's needed, understand if you're adhering to these compliance frameworks, and make that process a lot easier. Because I'll be the first to say, no one wants to do it, and that's why we started the business. Is like, I've done it now a few times, and it's like that process sucks. I want to get back to building product for my customers, and it's like, okay, well, that's what this business is about. Let's automate that so other companies don't need to deal with that.
So you're in essence enabling the companies to do what they're aiming to do as part of it.
Yeah, and like put more resources towards building the product and supporting the customers. Yeah. Sorry, and one thing I didn't mention was my role. So I'm one of the founders here. I run technology, so I'm the CTO, Chief Technology Officer. In a smaller company, maybe you do every little thing as a founder and CTO, and that is true of still kind of today. But as we've grown and the success that we've had with not only the product but the go-to-market strategy and the customers and revenue we've been able to bring in, we've been able to hire a lot of people to take on those verticals. So some of those departments that I oversee would be security, compliance, our own internal compliance, which we use our own tool for, IT, program management, which is kind of like project management on steroids, application development, which is like building the product, working with design and product, platform development. You might think about that one level below, like what you see as a product. What are the things that scale this product, right? So you can think of things like Facebook and how do you go to billions of users. The infrastructure team that manages we use AWS, all the stuff with infrastructure. We use Terraform to automate and put infrastructure as code. QA department, and data. I'm probably missing one, but those are the 7, I think. So yeah. So it's a lot, and we have leaders on each group, and understanding the priorities of everyone and what's going on, how I can work as fast as possible unblock anyone doing what their job is.
That sounds like you've got a lot to do. So what
It is.
advice would you give to somebody, a student wanting to get into that field or even that position of being a CTO in a business?
Yeah. I think I would say in terms of like an engineering leader, whether it's a CTO or VPE, depending on like whatever vertical, my personal advice is go make sure you're a master of your own domain. I've always had a sentiment of if you're going to tell someone to do something, you better know how to do it yourself. Now you can hire people better than you, and as you should. And a lot of my team members can do stuff way better than I can, but nevertheless, I can do all those departments that I just said with excellence. Maybe it'll take me a day where it takes someone 10 minutes to figure out maybe a core security issue or something. But not that we have any. But let's change that application development issue. Yeah. So with that, it's my advice to all engineers or people going into the engineering field is, if you find a passion in this, jump in with both feet. Don't look back. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have downtime and turn off your brain, go turn on that reruns of Friends and, and zone out. That's cool. I get it. But on the flip side of that coin, it's like, don't watch, those reruns where you're not getting value. Go watch the F8 conference from last year. Go study some new release of the new PHP version, whatever it is. Dive into this vertical and go own it and master it. And a lot of times it's not just reading, it's doing. So whether you have that job or not, make side projects. Holy cow, it's so easy nowadays compared to 20 years ago to launch, the iPhone didn't even exist, but an iPhone app on the App Store, and you can launch an app what was that goofy game, Flappy Birds or whatever the hell it was called, some dude in Indonesia or something like that is making 300 grand a day from ads. Go do that. Now go also finish out school and get a foundation, but mess around with that stuff. Don't just kill your time watching mindless stuff. So that's what I would say. And those efforts and those days or those nights that you're up till 3 a.m. trying to figure out how to vertically center some text against an icon because you don't understand the fundamentals of CSS. And nowadays you even have Flexbox, so it's easier for you guys. But if you don't to understand the fundamentals of these things, that's what that struggle that you're going to have, right? That's what gets you over the hump. And years later, not only that education you can give to your other coworkers or employees, but yourself to build it yourself. It just makes it that much faster, right? I have a member on my team that can do something like a very, very complex project. If I go put him in a corner and say, go solve this, in a couple of days, it might have taken an entire team a month to do that. So that's that level of expertise that I love seeing. I commend engineers that there's nothing wrong with management. I'm in management, whatever. There's nothing wrong if that's what you want to do because you like the people side of it. Do it and go and lean into that and get better at that. That's great. The one thing I want to call out for almost everyone listening in is just because you think management is how I make more money or management is how I can get up in the corporate ladder, I would call pardon my French, bullshit on that. This is just me, maybe as a Danielism. I value people more that stick into their profession and master that proficiency. So that individual I was talking about, he's a distinguished engineer on the team, and I give him the hardest problems in the company, and I can go talk to my VPs. They'll orchestrate a team and figure out how to do it in communication, and that's great. When you need to get something done in engineering, right? Like you're launching the space shuttle, you need those engineers. You don't need people to talk about how to do it. You need people to go do it. So I value engineers, and I think that was maybe to sum up that was the kind of the commencement speech that I got at my graduation. It was actually random. Steve Kerr gave our commencement speech in 2004, but it was something that he said that I never let back. Where it was there was a lot of the different colleges, right? And it's all hats off to the business, the business college and whatnot. Like they're gonna actually go out there and make the markets real and sell, and like that's great. The engineers, like we're gonna build, and no one can do anything without us, right? Like these businesses aren't businesses without a product. So that's just me, and hopefully you guys that are all listening to this is you love that, right? You love the creation part of it, and it's an art form. I mean, there's science to it, but that creation part's very, very rewarding. So
That's great advice, Daniel. I really appreciate you telling us that advice. Is there anything else that you would want anybody watching the video to know? Maybe some additional piece of advice, a funny story or something?
yeah, let's see. You know, I, it's kind of a cliche in the industry, but always pick the right tool for the job. And sometimes you don't know what the right tool is if you don't have enough exposure to that. So I think just know, like, oh, I know how to program, like that's good. You know how to code, like in a very specific language and a very specific type of programming. And what's funny is most programming languages can do all of the different types of programming, like imperative or whatever, but it's like but getting that breadth, and maybe you don't need to be an expert at it, but at what time it's like, oh, this type of programming is not right for this problem, let me go start researching this. And I know a little bit of it, like maybe I took a class, and at least your memory's jogged, and let me go maybe follow some examples and learn it. And I think that's, to me, that was my favorite part of having a CS degree. Like on one side, maybe for all the educators and everyone at U of A, close your ears. Like, I don't really care about a degree. Like if you can do the job, you can do the job. On the flip side, I value people that have CS or very, closely related degree, engineering, whatnot, because you went for 4 years or 5 years, and your brain got shifted a bit. Your brain molded into how to think in systems processing and like just in like discrete problem solving. And with that, you can learn anything. And so, like a great example, when we started Drata, our core technology is JavaScript. Our backend is in Node. I never wrote one line of Node before we started the business, but I've been following that project Node over since its inception. And that, I don't know if you followed that, it almost broke off when they sold to Oracle and whatever. Eventually, they figured it out legally, and it came back. And now the community over the past 5-ish years has really adopted it. And so, you look at NPM and JavaScript's eating the world. And so that's what we decided to go with. I never wrote a line of Node in my life. And so I took a quick course on Udemy or something, obviously studied it, messed with it. You look at these frameworks that are out there, and they have great guides. And within a month, I'm mastering it, and I'm, obviously writing our company, writing the code for our company. And so that to me is like a testament to the education I got at U of A, and again, going all in and really understanding the why behind that. So that's like, again, you can not get a degree. You can just go take a boot camp or read online and learn to code on YouTube, and maybe you can figure something out. But you're not going to be an engineer. You're not going to be like a master developer unless you have those fundamental things. It's just a trade skill, like doctor, lawyer, engineer. You really do have to get the education to get those. So for everyone's listening, stick through it. It's gonna be hard, but it's worth it.
Right. All right. Well, thanks, Daniel. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your experiences and your wisdom. I think it was very wise of you to share all those great things and pieces of advice here.
Yeah.
Would you call them Danielism?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again.
All right. Cheers.
Take care.